Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of our e-workshop series. The Microcredit Summit campaign launched the 100 million project in 2013, which is building a movement among financial service stakeholders to take specific, measurable, and time-bound actions toward the end of poverty through campaign commitments. This webinar series partners with organizations that have launched their campaign commitments and focus on new and innovative ways of working toward the end of extreme poverty. So today, we are co-hosting this e-workshop with the Carsey School of Public Policy and Fundación Capital, who both launched their campaign commitment in 2014. We will share insights on how to start and scale up savings groups. Before we begin, I want to mention that we will be taking questions throughout the discussion. If you look on the right, you should see the question and answer section there. Please submit your questions as they come to you throughout the discussion, and we will integrate them into our conversation. Be sure you're sending your question to every panelist so that we handle your question. Let me first introduce you to Bill Maddox from the Carsey School of Public Policy, who will be facilitating the discussion today. So, Bill.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Sarah, thank you so much for the introduction. We're excited to be part of this webinar with Microcredit Summit for the 100 Million Project. This has been a week of webinars. This is my second webinar moderation this week, so hopefully if you've been at our previous webinars, you're not going to be tired of hearing my voice. In any event, I'm really excited to be here, and I wanted to just briefly talk about why Carsey has been focusing on savings groups and specifically go over the campaign commitments that we met or made back in early September in Mérida, Mexico. So the Carsey School of Public Policy is a new name for the Carsey Institute, which has been around for about 10 years. As a public policy school, we are launching into an expanded set of activities that we think are going to be really exciting and really correlate directly with the campaign commitments that I'll discuss in 1 minute. We've been involved in doing training since 1999, associated with another university, came to University of New Hampshire in 2009, and we've been training people for savings for more than 12 years, and specifically for savings group and savings group methodology since around 2006. Doing a lot of that with Hugh Allen, who is with VSL Associates, and training about 750 individuals and organizations across Africa and from other parts of the world on savings group methodology. So we have a very strong interest in where the savings group movement is going. We were, at the invitation of Jeff Ash and Oxfam, involved in organizing the first global summit of savings group practitioners, the Arusha Savings Group Summit, back in 2011. And so we're really very involved in seeing this movement grow, and we were really pleased to see that the Microcredit Summit included savings groups as a significant part of the agenda for the gathering of the campaign in Mérida back in September. I want to take a minute now to go over those specific commitments that we made while we were in Mérida. This is a discussion that we've been having for quite a while in terms of our new role as a school of public policy, and Carsey has been doing a lot of really cutting-edge work around poverty and understanding poverty in the United States for 10 years, but we wanted to start looking at how can we bring that area of commitment for research to the international stage, and specifically with our savings group work. So our first commitment is to research that measures the impact of savings groups in creating social capital, empowerment, resiliency, and community action, and also risks or unanticipated negative effects. This is really important to understand the kind of big picture of what happens within savings groups beyond just the transactions that are happening around loans and savings and an insurance fund. We also want to research how savings groups spread within and between communities to identify conditions that lead to spontaneous replication that can be key to large-scale expansion. This is a really amazing part of savings groups, is that when you go into a village and you bring savings group methodology, within 2 or 3 years, that methodology spreads to other groups within the village, to other villages, it's really quite uncanny. And it's also part of how savings groups are rooted to a age-old, maybe hundreds of years old tradition of Roscas that pop up really all over the world. So we want to learn more about that whole process. Next, we want to research how savings groups can serve as platforms for other development inputs. This is where the savings group movement is growing in a really big way, as a lot of organizations have come in with programs for gender, for health, malaria, for dealing with people from post-conflict situations, dealing with agricultural value chain. There's just so many different examples of innovation where savings groups are being used as a platform, but we really want to understand how this mechanism works and what are the danger points in terms of using the methodology for other development initiatives, and make sure that as we build the savings group movement to 50 or 100 million people, we're looking at a way of growing it in a way that's going to protect the basic health of savings groups and the safety and security of the members. We're really interested in looking at broadcasting a package of innovations in savings group design and delivery to improve the performance and accelerate the adoption of principles and practices at a breakthrough level of effectiveness and efficiency, creating massive uptake of savings group methodology across Africa and beyond. That's an extremely long sentence, but it's really to say that, you know, there is an incredible amount of innovation going on out there in isolation, and we'd like to really work together with one of the organizations that's very important in this entire process has been the SEAP network and the Savings Working Group and other organizations to spread the methodologies and be able to build a lot of knowledge about what works well, what practices are able to build the savings group movement to grow at a very rapid pace and in a way that's efficient and really safe for members. And finally, research how combining asset building strategies of conditional cash transfers with savings groups may reduce extreme poverty and build livelihood options for women and their families. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in just a minute when we meet Yang Shin-Hyung. Yang, I'm actually going to segue right into my introduction of her right now, because this is an area where very little work has been done in the savings group field globally, but Fundación Capital and Yang, as a country project coordinator for Fundación, is really spearheading a very exciting initiative, which you'll hear about in a minute, about how savings groups can be organized in a very rapid fashion, and once the groups are up and running and are functioning well, starting to link them with a conditional cash transfer program and eventually with a bank linkage program. So I'd like to, at this point, turn it over to Yang Shin-Hyung. Yang is a former Brandeis student of Jeff Ash. She put together this entire plan for this rapid 2-hour training as her master's thesis, and took that thesis directly to Dominican Republic and put it into action. Has been doing this for over a year, and we're really excited about being able to hear about this methodology and the work that Yang is doing. So Yang.
Thank you. I got interested in, when I was introduced to savings groups about 4 years ago, I was fascinated by its by what it brings out to the people's mindset and people's attitude, and then I thought this should be available. This methodology should be available to as many people as possible, because this is a really unique methodology that I have never seen in my work in the international development for the many years. Anyway, when I just started studying about savings groups, I realized that it's very important to, for the scale up, it's important to make it simple and cost effective. And this is how I got embarked in the experiment to make it simple. Well, I met for the last few years, I worked on how to make it simple, and but without losing the quality of the savings groups. And I made it. I was able to work with it. Well, it is important to 2 hours training. Conventional training takes about 15 visits in a year to create a savings group, but I actually, and it takes about one week for the savings until the savings groups to start savings. But I just made it possible to for the groups to start saving just in 2 hours of a training. I will just explain how I do it exactly. It's important that the group invited in training already knows why they are there and what they can expect from the training. For that to happen, I work through local agents who can help identify a group of people of at least eight people interested in savings. I start the session by asking questions about about savings and loan practices in the village. I ask them whether they are saving or how they deal with the emergencies when they do not have any savings. Often about 80% of people do not save. They don't save, they do not save, but most of them have experience with money lenders or some kind of loan. Then I explain what they can expect from savings groups, what savings groups can offer to them, and start a simulation by electing administrative committee. And I fix the date. I help them fix the date for savings, and I also help them fix the values of a social and loan fund and the value of a fine. Then we sit in order, and then simulation begins with the fake money. It takes about 1 hour just for simulation, but it depends on the number of people who are in training. If it's just 8 people, it takes just 30 or 40 minutes. But if there are more than 20, it takes about 1.5 hours. And when all the simulation is over, I ask the group whether they are interested in starting savings, and I hand over a guide, which is a 6 pages guide to the group as well. And I also provide a kit if the group is interested in buying that, because I never provide the kit. I mean, the kit has its cost, and the group has to pay for that. Often the group starts savings if they are interested in all this process. They start savings from the following week. But if the information by the local agent is given well, I mean the prearranged the people who are in the local, the local agent gives the good information before the training. Sometimes people bring the money for their first training. If you can see these 3 pictures in the slide, this is all the simulation. The first one is electing committee members, and the second one is they are now in the simulation. They are actually saving with fake money. But the third group in the right, they just brought the money in their first training, and they saved their social fund and their loan fund, and they bought their headlock with their social fund on the first day. So this is how I usually lead the savings groups training. Well, the performance of group depends on the interest, leadership, social capital, degree of social capital, and level of intellect of the participants. This is why I pay a lot of attention to the selection of group members. When the members have a good interest and there is a good leadership and good social capital, and these are well provided, all goes very well. Certainly, not all the savings groups formed in this way are successful. Groups with poor social cohesion hardly survive. But if we make the groups with the people interested, with a strong social capital, this works very well. But I don't say this 2 hours of training is just. I don't think that 2 hours of training is the only training they get. The 2-hour training makes the groups start saving, but I don't think that's enough. Reinforcement can help group avoid mistakes and further mistakes and get the encouragement. So I think first for the group to start saving, 2 hours is fine, but after that, maybe 3 or 4 times a visit per year will make the group perfect.
All right. Well, we have our first question, but the question is relating to the conditional cash transfer piece. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to continue on and see if the question gets answered in the process of you explaining how you're going to be linking the savings group program with conditional cash transfers. And if the question is answered, great. And if not, I will answer that question and any other questions that come up afterwards. So Gyung, you can continue on, please.
Okay, good. Well, once I just got, I worked with this simple methodology of creating savings groups, and but I wanted to make it to make this one available to more people. And this conditional cash transfer for me is a very nice platform to spread savings groups. You might conditional cash transfers program is quite popular in Latin America. There are about 33 million beneficiaries in about 18 countries in Latin America. And usually the government organizes this, government run this conditional cash transfers program, and they exchange a lot of information among the countries. This conditional cash transfers program, for me, has a great, can work very well with the savings groups, because in case of Dominican Republic, conditional cash transfer is called Progresando con Solidaridad. And in this program, usually the beneficiaries who receive the cash, not exactly in Dominican Republic, it's, they receive a cash, they receive some subsidy through the, the in-kind subsidy. But these beneficiaries of conditional cash transfer program, they have to meet every month in their own communities. So there is some social capital in the group. And then conditional cash transfer program is headed by many supervisors. The beneficiaries are constantly in meeting. They are in contact with their supervisors. So usually one beneficiary meets at least more than once a month with the supervisors. And I thought this is a very good, if the supervisors turns into the facilitators of savings groups, this can be a very good way of providing follow-up and reinforcement to the savings groups. And then also, in Dominican Republic, we have about 800,000 people, beneficiaries in the conditional cash transfer. So if this works well, I thought it can be reaching a not only just 800,000, but 33 million people in Latin America. So I just got interested in connecting conditional cash transfers and savings groups. Thanks to the visit of Carsey and then also Fundación Capital's policy, we were able to link with the Vice Presidency of the Dominican Republic, who are running conditional cash transfer program. And now we are doing a small pilot program. I have so far, for the last 4 months, I have trained about 200 supervisors who are working constantly with the beneficiaries, and then so that they can create 1 groups per person. And we have about now 100 groups already formed, but with 2,000 beneficiaries working, saving at the moment. So still, this pilot is going on now. It has not ended yet. But our idea is also to connect these, create 200 savings groups, and then also after a few months to link these savings groups with the banks, local banks, so that they can have unofficial and official, financial inclusion. This is our experiment that's going on in the Dominican Republic at the moment.
Young, I'd like to, before you go on to explaining the bank linkage, I'd like to just ask a question that came from Tricia Martinez. She's the founder and CEO of Shift, and they send cash transfers to women's savings groups. They're working in Uganda now, but it'll be expanding to Zimbabwe and Indonesia. And she thought they were the only one doing this, so she was surprised to hear that you're doing this in the DR. They use unconditional cash transfers, create group savings accounts for women in SACCOs or similar credit cooperatives. And she wants to know why you want to focus on conditional versus unconditional transfers.
Why I want to focus on the conditional versus?
Yes, I think the answer is that this is the program that Fundación has decided to work with in the DR, and it is a conditional cash transfer program. But do you have an opinion about conditional versus unconditional cash transfer?
Oh, well, I think that, yes, I have heard about some linkage between savings groups and the unconditional cash transfer program in Africa. And I think but in Latin America, we all have a conditional cash transfer. So, well, I think it depends on, the African situation and Latin American situation is a bit different. I don't have any, particular opinion exactly about unconditional and conditional.
Okay.
The situation in the country, the degree of poverty somehow makes Africa more inclined to unconditional, and
right.
Latin America to conditional,
Sure.
But I don't have a particular opinion about it.
Well, I think the exciting thing is that there are other savings group programs out there that are linking with conditional or unconditional cash transfer programs, and so what we really need to do is start a dialogue between these different groups and see what we're all learning. I also want to go back to your rapid training methodology. Paul Rippey has asked a question that he says, first of all, great. And he says, Young, do you have an objective, quantifiable definition of group quality that would allow us to compare the quality of your groups with the savings groups formed the boring, old, several meetings way?
Well, I have some strong indicators to measure the quality of savings groups. I don't know how other people think, but the number of shares purchased by the group, the average number of shares purchased by the group somehow represent very well the strength of the savings groups. For example, if the groups purchase 3 or 4 or 5 shares in each meeting, this group is certainly strong compared to the other groups that purchase just 1 or 2, shares per meeting. This is my, of course, the amount of the money is strong indicators, but the degree of the economic situation is different. And but for me, if the group, however poor and whether they are poor or they are rich, if they tend to save always 4 or 5 shares in each meeting, I think it's a very good sign that this group is very good. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Young. I'm going to go on to one other question, and then you can continue to tell us about the linkage with. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the bank that you're linking with, but let me just ask the question. So there was Karen Wright was wanting a definition between conditional versus unconditional cash transfers, and I'll make an attempt at that, which is a conditional cash transfer is generally a transfer of direct money or a voucher of some kind with the expectation and the requirement sometimes of the recipient doing something like having their children vaccinated, attending nutrition education programs, doing other types of programs that would give them either information or would somehow enhance their life, but with the condition tied to getting some type of a payment from the government. Unconditional cash transfers are simply cash transfers that go to individuals who are vulnerable or in a particular situation and government feels needs support. That could be disabled people or elderly or vulnerable children, but it's a cash transfer that doesn't require any particular type of action on behalf of the recipient. Is that a good explanation, Young?
Excellent, yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do is there are a couple questions more, but I'm going to just zip ahead to the next section on Savings Group-led financial inclusion, and you can tell us more about the way in which you're linking with Banco Adopem, which I just remembered the name.
Yeah, great. Well, I will just briefly tell you about this bank links. This is not done. This pilot has not been done with the conditional cash transfer population, but the Fundación Capital has led these savings groups. We had experimented on savings groups-led financial inclusion during the last year. I mean, November 2013 through February 2014. And we just worked with the savings groups, and then we tried to link them with. We tried to ask them, convince them to open a bank account. Of course, it was not it was not done in a forced way. About 390 people opened the savings accounts. Out of them, about 10 savings accounts were group accounts, but the majority was individual bank accounts. Adopem was the main bank, actually, who played a very big role in that pilot. As you can see in the first picture, the manager of Adopem went to the savings groups, and then she helped the people fill in the form, and then collected their copies of the identification and then their balance in the initial savings, and then she took it to their bank, and then she made a bank account, and she brought the bank accounts to the savings group people. Well, Adopem provided this special service, and thanks to that, majority of people, out of 390 bank accounts, 360 bank accounts were opened by Adopem. Well, we did this pilot because we wanted to see whether banking linkage with the bank and whether banking linkage with the bank can really help groups. And then the result is yes. I think savings groups and banks, I'm strongly convinced that savings groups and banks are complementary with the three reasons. First, the security of the money. We have a savings groups that sometimes save about $10,000 or $15,000, and these people, we cannot save this. I mean, we cannot keep this, amount of savings in a small wooden box. So it is very, very important to keep the money to secure the security of the savings, and for that, bank is very important. And also another one is that in the savings groups, we do not, the members cannot save more than 5 shares in their meeting. We have a minimum and maximum. So but often there are people who want to save more. So these people can save their extra money in their own personal bank account. And the third reason is that in the savings groups, usually every week, the cycle is 1 year, so every group has to share out their savings in every year. So for the child who are, as you can see in this picture, they have most of these children have a goal. They are saving with a goal to go to with the objective to go to the college, but they are usually 10 years and 11 years. So that it's important for them to have a long-term savings. So that's why it's important to have a savings account so that they can save their yearly savings into their accounts. Well, there are other reasons also. Bank can be benefited by the savings groups because bank can use these groups regular meeting to advertise their own product. So we found that savings groups and banks are complementary. And I noticed that the more mature the group is, the more open to bank links is. There are more people who already have bank accounts without being told to open the accounts. Another thing which is interesting about this pilot is that we, out of them, kept the data of the savings group, the bank accounts opened by the savings groups, and we compared the data in 8 months. And we've noticed that 33% of the accounts received the deposits, and the average savings reached the US dollar to 72.31. You must know that the usual average savings in the normal bank accounts of people who are not in savings groups, the average savings is about $30. And we also noticed the increase in savings by 48%. So out of them was very much interested in this experiment, this pilot program, and now out of them, as a bank, they are promoting savings groups by with their own funding, with their own money, and yes, that's now what's happening, and we are still we are collaborating with ADOBAM, continuously collaborating with ADOBAM for this CCT and savings groups.
So Young, I have a question from Pilar Contreras, and she wants to know what's the benefit for the bank? Is it administrative costs for each bank account? Our administrative costs are expensive to set up a bank account. So is the bank offering some other services? What does Banco ADOBAM get out of this relationship?
Excellent. Banco ADOBAM's interest. Banco ADOBAM appreciates the contact with the disciplined clients, because Banco ADOBAM is interested in creating their savings groups. Creating the clients, increasing their clients, and then with the savings groups, they were able to achieve that, and also not only just the clients, but the quality clients, because most of them, as you can see, many of them deposit the money, and the deposit is higher than others, and the money, the size of the deposit is much higher than other people. So mostly ADOBAM's interested in the contact with the larger quality clients, so that by working with these people, they believe that they can also provide other services that bank offers, and then they can get long-term benefits. They are not singing just a short-term benefit. They think in a long-term basis.
Sure.
But other banks, I would like to just add, there are other. We also, Fundación Capital works with other banks too. For example, Banco BHD, and then we always National Bank. These banks are interested in working with savings groups for the corporate social responsibility. So there are not every bank has the same interest in. They are all interested in working with savings groups, but their interest is not the same.
Great. Well, I think it's a really exciting. Both aspects, the conditional cash transfer experiment and also the linkage with Banco ADOBAM, are both really interesting and exciting. And the fact that we're using this rapid training methodology means there's a third element here that makes it, you're truly a pioneer, Young, and I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how things develop over time. And that's one of the things Carsey is going to be paying attention to. And the person paying attention to this mostly will be our friend Jeff Ash. I want to bring Jeff into the question, to the conversation now. Jeff, as many of you know, is a longtime pioneer in microfinance, as one of the people that saw early on the promise of savings groups, doing an evaluation of the PAC program in Nepal. He has been a leader in the field with Oxfam International Oxfam America, building a very large savings group program in Mali, and now he has written a book that I think he will probably promote, but I will promote it right now too, which is In Their Own Hands: How Savings Groups Are Revolutionizing Development. And Jeff, we're really glad to have you here. And Jeff, I'm going to be the person who's going to be moving your slides along, so you don't have to worry about that. But what I'd like to do is just ask you a quick question about, you know, according to the Global Savings Group database, the SAVIX, we've reached an important milestone with more than 10 million savings group members globally. This is an impressive number, but it's far below the goal of 50 million savings groups that were set at the Savings Group 2013 conference last year, and what you talk about in their own hands. And wondering what will it take for a 5-fold increase in the number of savings group members in the next 6 years?
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, John. It's so impressive what you've accomplished in the Dominican Republic. In fact, I'm greatly looking forward to my visit to see how you're doing in a couple of weeks in January. So, as you know, the savings group movement started in a remote corner of Niger in 1991 by Moira Eknis. And she thought she was creating a model that would only reach just a handful of villages. And probably much to her great surprise, you can now see that savings groups have expanded to a movement of 10.5 million members of savings groups, and that translates into over 500,000 groups in probably 177,000 villages in some 65 countries. And these groups collectively are managing, as you can see, over $250 million, of which, interestingly enough, because of the methodology and because savings groups charge interest on the loans they give out during the year and also charge fines, you can see that they have $81 million in profits. So what is amazing is that how fast savings groups have grown. All of this expansion has occurred in the last 7 years, since 2008. Before that time, there was about 1 million savings group members, and now you can see that in this short amount of time, this amount is increased up to 10 million. It could actually be much more than that because it's very hard to track the process of spontaneous replication, where groups train new groups, and Hugh Allen, who's tracking this information very closely, makes a rough estimate. There could be as many, or maybe many more, as 20 million members of savings group members already through the process of viral replication. Of course, this occurs at no cost to the program. Now, back in the Savings Group 2013 SG13 conference, the major savings group practitioners, and these include CARE, Catholic Relief Services, Aga Khan, Oxfam America, Freedom from Hunger, Plan International, among others, created an objective to reach, to ratchet this number up to 50 million savings group members by 2020. And by that time, this number of incredibly impressive number of 500,000 groups would have grown to 2.5 million groups, and it would have increased to 833,000 villages. And by that time, since savings groups are increasingly going into cities, into probably scores, if not hundreds of cities, and these groups would manage on average over $2 billion of resources, of which $700 million are in profits. So instead of those profits going up to financial institutions, that goes right back into the pockets of incredibly poor people. Now you say, well, that's a massive expansion, but that must be incredibly costly. But we've done the math, and based on the work that when I was director of Oxfam America, Freedom from Hunger's Saving for Change program, we calculated in Mali that it costs only between $1,000 to $2,000, but usually around $1,500 per village to introduce this methodology to a village of 1,000 people. And out of that process, there'd be 2 to 10 groups set up over a period of years. So this works out to a benefit to the entire community, not just those who are receiving parts of these groups, about $1 a head or $1 a person. Certainly the most cost-effective approach to improving the lot of the world's poorest has been developed. And so that is our vision. We hope, the 50 million is possible, but other estimates, we think that with since the methodology is defined, and then I think John is doing some real breakthroughs on how to make the methodology even more cost-effective, which we'll be studying very closely over the next years. This number could be 100 million. So let's just see how savings groups expanded in Mali, where there are currently 450,000 women organized in some 20,000 groups in 5,000 to 6,000 villages in Mali. And you can see this process of expansion occurred in steps. The little red dots are what we accomplished in the first 2 years, the yellow dots in the following 2 years, and with Gates funding in 2008, the number of groups expanded. So that you can see that it's largely saturating most of the populated part of the country. This shows a tremendous potential for mass expansion at incredibly low cost, with very, very good results of this methodology in one of the world's poorest countries, with the average savings groups is many kilometers, many miles away from a paved road, and most of the members are illiterate, and we've introduced an oral record-keeping system there to help them along. So that's how it has expanded there.
Jeff, I wanted to ask you, we know savings groups work well in rural areas, as we can see in Mali. Most of the map here are really, very rural areas. But I'm wondering how well are savings groups working in peri-urban or urban areas where there might also be micro-lenders competing for the same borrowers who might be members of savings groups?
Well, let me take just an example from a Saving for Change program in Cambodia. I think that savings groups can hold their own. In this one area, very, very close to a city, just on the outskirts of a city, I noted that I documented that there were 7 MFIs competing for customers in this peri-urban area, but there are also 7 Saving for Change groups operating in the same setting. And as I tried to explore why, the members of these Saving for Change groups said, well, we want to save the small amounts of money that are right here in our savings group, and for small loans, but when we need larger loans, we go to the MFIs out there for rice or other larger business investments. So to me, each of these methodologies was assuming its appropriate role. The savings groups for safe, convenient place to save, and and small loans of $50, $100, $25, etc. for short terms, and the larger loans to the MFIs. MFIs weren't too happy about this, but that's a reality. And I believe basically that savings groups for the very poorest are a better alternative for getting down to the bottom of the economic pyramid, and that the most from that base, it's those needing larger loans, or as John was saying, a place to store extra savings or for longer-term savings accounts can go off to the MFIs or banks. So there's a real partnership between the two different models.
Sure. So a question has come in from Govinda Raut, and she is asking, or he is asking, what about in areas where you have the Grameen modality and microfinance dominated market, in other words, fairly saturated markets where people, say like Bangladesh, where Grameen has a very large presence. Can savings groups be formed in those areas, do you feel?
Well, very interesting. David Panetta, through the Aga Khan Foundation, and I've discussed this quite a bit, and he talked about a program launching self-help savings groups in both India, where the self-help group model is very prevalent, and also in Bangladesh, as you pointed out, is with a huge presence between Grameen and ASA and BRAC and many, many other practitioners. With that said, there's still, in the more remote areas of even a country like Bangladesh, and among the very poorest within those countries that are not candidates for, that haven't haven't reached out to Grameen for their services. Actually, it's possible for them to reach to develop these savings groups in that context. In fact, David Panetta and others found that it was really possible to create these groups very, very quickly, even in a market that is as saturated as Bangladesh.
So another question that kind of brings us back to Mali is from Theophilo Rugubira, and Theophilo is asking, in countries where the majority don't know how to read or write, how can we help people with savings groups?
Well, there's been a great pioneering effort. There's two approaches. One is that the methodology developed originally in Nepal with complicated ledgers has been vastly simplified, with the greatest simplification that I've seen so far in the Dominican Republic, where members can save in shares in a simple book, passbook for each borrower, for each saver. But in Mali, where in many groups there is not a single literate person, we have developed an oral record-keeping system so that each person sitting in order only needs to remember 5 facts: whether they saved the previous week, whether they have an outstanding loan and how much that outstanding loan is, and then the person, and then also serve as a witness of the person sitting next to them that what they said was correct. The 5th thing they need to remember is that the total amount in the box when the box is closed and locked at the end of the meeting. And then when the box is open the next meeting, they have to say how much it was and check and see if indeed that amount is correct. This system of running a group without written records has proved to be extremely effective, very accurate, extremely fast. And the great thing about it is that instead of 1 or 2 or 3 people, the president, secretary, and treasurer doing all the record keeping, everybody has a role. So it's a very participatory system. And has worked extremely well in Mali and elsewhere where it's been tried.
So Jeff, I think one of the things that I like about your book, that, you know, besides the fact that it's very easy to read and it's full of great pictures in the middle, which we're going to look at some of those pictures in a minute, but I think what I like is that you have boiled everything down to really 8 principles of in your own hands development. I wondered if you just take a couple of minutes to go through these principles and talk about what are some of the things necessary in order to really have a completely different model of financial inclusion, economic development, and in your own hands development as you describe it.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you. I did boil this. I've been involved in microfinance for 20 years before getting involved with savings groups, and I boiled this down to a series of very simple principles because in their own hands development, in other words, devolving responsibility to villagers to carry out their programs requires a very, very light touch. In other words, you want a minimum amount of training, such as John was describing, with a little bit of follow-up, and so that this model goes off by itself with little to no ongoing staff presence. This is the only way we can really reach the number of people lacking access to needing better financial services, which total 2.5 billion. Consider that the microfinance, with all the efforts, has reached 200 million of these. Okay, the first idea is that any effort that does this really needs to think in terms of scale. You might start small, but you really need to think in terms of reaching entire slum communities or thousands of villages, because to make a dent in poverty, that you really need to as was said by Abid, saying the founder of BRAC, small is beautiful, but big is necessary. And to do this, make every effort to develop a method where less is more and the simple is better. So I know the initial manuals that we started with Saving for Change and all the others, and the VSLA methodology which used to be longer, and now they're shorter and more pictures, and we found and in John's model, even simplifying very, very simple to even more simple, that you can reach more people. It's easier for people to understand. You need to build on local traditions, and the reason why saving groups have expanded so quickly is that you say, explain to me how your roster, your tontine, your san, your sociedad, whatever it happens to be, works. And they say, it works like this. Well, then you say, okay, well, this is what we propose. It's always built, so 80% of the understanding is already there. Even if people haven't joined these groups, are not part of these rosters, which most aren't, they at least have heard about it. You can build on that. Your effort should constantly be looking at your cost and lowering your costs and increasing your efficiency. So you want to use your paid staff to the degree to train as many groups as possible, which means that they have to devolve responsibility down to the groups quickly. And let's consider that in Mali, the average paid staff from an NGO, local NGO, had a ratio of 2,000 members to one staff person. And with a typical MFI, BRAC, in Bangladesh, BRAC, Grameen, ASA, all the same, the ratio is 1 to 250. 1 to 2,000 versus 1 to 250. And now that funding is over and only a small handful of staff are looking at groups in Mali, maybe 20 or so, there's no evidence that some 20,000 groups with over almost 500,000 members are in any way faltering. Really important in this methodology is not to create dependency, and that means absolutely no giveaways. And I think John mentioned that even the boxes had to be purchased. So no giveaways, no matching funds, no complications. Make it as simple as possible. And also, as the next principle, as quickly as possible, set standard, encourage and build on local control so that there's no dependency whatsoever on ongoing staff presence for these groups to not only survive but also to replicate and spread between villages. I think, Bill, as you noted, I have an idea of in the future of salting the idea of a savings group in maybe 2 or 3 villages, 3 or 4 villages maybe, and then just coming back 3 or 4 years later and find that the ideas have spread to fill in the spaces at no additional cost. I think you really need to set the standards performance for the NGO staff. So there's a good monitoring system because it's you're constantly looking, well, how many groups? How could you reach more groups? What were your objectives? Have you reached them? It could be to encourage high performance and at the same time creating quality groups. And above all, you can never get this right from the first minute. You embrace learning, innovation, and not just from the top, but really involves the group leaders and the field staff and the volunteers and how to make this methodology better.
Great, Jeff. I want to go to the next slide, which is a related question. I know you described the process. This slide is from Mali, and it is a language-based kind of the pictograph version of your training. So the question that we have is about when you use this methodology the question is from Eugenia Gusev, and Eugenia is specifically talking about VSLA methodology, but in Mali it was Saving for Change. But what are some of the adaptations to the traditional VSLA methodology made for illiterate populations, and do they generally take longer to learn the process, to go through the saving and lending process than semi-literate groups?
No, it doesn't take any longer. Interestingly enough, it's the ideas are captured very quickly. and it's very simple. I'd say that I like to, the BSLA and Saving for Change methodologies are actually quite similar. I look at it, the difference between, let's say, Methodists and Congregationalists. Maybe we have a box, BSLA has a box with 3 locks, we have a box with 1 lock, but the basic principles are very, very similar. And we've found that it does not take more time if you boil down the methodology, and this picture form has been incredibly effective. This picture manual was developed largely in partnership with Freedom from Hunger. Using these pictures to guide the discussion, this works very well. Now, the person giving with this manual in her hand actually is a volunteer, and consider that then in Mali, this entire system was created with only 209 staff from 10 different NGOs, but there's maybe 4,000 or 5,000 what are called replicating agents, or volunteers that actually have trained most of the groups and are responsible for that. So this woman does not read or write, but by following a series of pictures, she's able to guide the process of forming the group.
That's great. We have several really cool slides that I want to show in a minute, and I also have questions that we're going to want to ask both you and Yong, but I want to let people who are listening and watching know that we are going to go beyond the 1 hour mark a little bit, probably by about 10 or 15 minutes at the most. So if you are watching and listening and you have something to do, please be advised that the Microcredit Summit is recording this, and it'll be available up on their website afterwards. But I wanted to move on and ask a couple of questions while we're looking at these beautiful slides that are from Jeff's camera, great photographer. Question about how the African churches in collaboration with the Western Church can reduce the poverty in our communities. Can you comment, I guess, specifically as how churches have been involved in doing formation of savings groups, or why a church which already has a congregation in place might be a logical place to organize groups?
Yes, well, thank you for that question. I think a church is a natural, or a mosque, or the people that attend is a natural organizing platform for these kinds of groups. And organizations, major international NGOs such as World Vision and others are very involved in the entire savings group movement. Bill and through the Carsey Institute, the Carsey School for Public Policy, and with Bill Maddox and I taking the lead, maybe introducing a savings group model in the United States, and we've heard that there could be a tremendous receptivity in the small churches dotting the Deep South, where small congregations come together, and many are in the clutches of money lenders, title lenders, and we're thinking of exporting the methodology through there. Now, this slide, the slide before was a group of replicating agents, but this woman, coming together to share experience, but this woman here has a very interesting story, and it shows the political dimension of savings groups very well. This woman, at the age of 13, was running a clandestine radio station as a guerrilla fighter and passing messages among the guerrillas in Guatemala. But now she through an organization she started called the Foundation, I'll translate, Foundation for the Women of the Province of Alta Verapaz, organized all of the savings group members to talk to their families, and through this process, they were able to elect, for the first time in Guatemala's history, a whole slate of women mayors. And we're seeing this. I just got a message from Moria Eknes, who started this process back in 1991 in Niger, and I just got this message yesterday saying that that women through the MMD program, which is like a VSLA, early VSLA program, are now taking a bigger role in the politics in Burkina Faso. So we're not only interested in starting these programs, but what happens 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years later. And I think we're starting to see some long-term major consequences, outcomes of this work that we're doing.
So I'd like to actually bring Young in. This looks like a group of youth, Jeff, right, who are involved in savings groups. And Young, you're doing some work in the DR where you actually are also working with young people in savings groups. So if either one of you want to comment, Jeff, you want to tell us about this picture first, and Young, if you want to talk a little bit about savings groups with young people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
In many, many villages in Mali, the mothers, these groups were not trained by the NGO promoters. The NGO, the mothers, excited about what they'd accomplished themselves, have trained many, many groups of children and these youths. In this case, an old girls group. And John, you can comment on the great number of children's groups in the Dominican Republic.
Yes, thank you, Bill. Yes, in the Dominican, previously, before that, I would like to just mention a little bit about the churches as well. And I think a church is an excellent place to organize savings groups. Why? Because among the churchgoers, I mean, there must be some great degree of social capital. I mean, they trust each other more. So that church has a great place for that. I actually have many groups formed in the church, and they are working very well. Okay, we have in the Dominican Republic many savings groups formed by the children and the youth. There are groups of children starting from 3 years old. I mean, a child of 3 years old until 15 years old, they form one group. And then these groups, I noticed that they sometimes are much more disciplined than the adults group. And then I see the change of the children through the savings groups, the development that they get through the savings groups is just fantastic. We have about 10% of the savings groups that has been formed are formed by the saving children, and the more and more we are trying to increase more and more number of the children's groups. Children usually save with the money that their parents gave to buy some snacks at the school. They do not spend all of them, and they just spend half of them, and they keep it for keep the half to save. And then also some of children trying to find a work to save more. For example, they cut the loan of the they wash the cars of their father or their neighbor, and they get some money, and they cut some weeds of the neighbor's backyard, and then they get some money, and they save these monies for the savings groups. And most of them also save with some goal in mind. We have a child, I have some special child who saved the money. He wanted to buy a computer, but he was not able to, of course, buy the computer with 1 year of savings. And he bought a pig, and he fattened his pig to be able to save more. I mean, and then children are just amazing. I would like to see more and more children's groups in other countries too.
Great. Well, thank you, Young. Jeff, I'm going to advance the next slide, and just if you want to tell us about this, and then I'm going to ask you both a couple more questions.
Well, this is one example, and I think it's very exciting. There's a lot of initiatives that the groups have taken on by themselves with no support of outside staff pushing this agenda. And this is one example where groups, many groups, are taking their excess liquidity, their excess money that actually is not on loan, and purchasing bags of grain when the price is low, so that they'll have more to eat during what's called the lean season, or the point where there's not much food between planting and the harvest. And so this helps them better survive. Along with having more cash to buy food, they store up this food so so these bags of grain so that the members can use it during the lean season.
So a question has come in from Severine Leboucher, who asks, for the credit part, do you have statistics on the default rate inside the group? What's the impact of peer pressure on repayment rates?
I'll just comment first. Generally, the repayment rate is extremely high. After all, it is their money that they are managing, so they tend to manage it very well. Now, some payments over a cycle may be late, and there's fines assigned to ensure people to pay back. But almost always by the end, by the time of the payout, when the fund is divided, most always this money comes back in time.
Great.
And John, maybe you can comment on that.
Okay. I'm going to move on. So a couple other kind of technical questions. This is from our friend Alfred Hamad Zaripi. Alfred is asking the question about lower costs. Has there been an assessment on the push for lowering costs and the quality of groups and the maturity time frame?
Alfred, nice to. I actually studied. I'll just make a little comment before answering that question. I had the enormous pleasure of spending 2 weeks with Alfred in Zimbabwe when inflation was 500% a year, and it was interesting to see that the savings groups were the only financial institutions that could survive that level of expansion because they just simply charged a very high interest rate. And after, when the inflation reached thousands and tens of thousands % a year, they abandoned cash altogether and used an in-kind, gauging the loan repayment in cans of oil and bars of soap, and also using foreign currency. Okay, yes, okay. So as far as we can tell, the quality remains, if there's enough, the quality of the groups tends to be very high, even though the training is somewhat lessened. That's really an area we need more study on. What is the absolute minimum amount of training necessary to create a small group, a strong group? And once a group is committed, how adaptive are they to making the group better?
So do you want to make just a quick comment on this picture, and then I have a question for Yang.
Oh yeah, there's two things. One is that many of the loans taken or the payouts are used for business purposes. But I think what is interesting is that the little insignias on this woman's dress, which is called a boo-boo, are for International Women's Day, indicating both the economic and the social impact of these groups.
That's great. Yang, I would like to ask a question that also came from Alfred regarding children's groups. What mechanisms have been put in place to monitor and manage the risk of participation affecting educational performance, not enrollment? But in other words, are we looking at any kind of downsides if they're participating in savings groups? Does it affect their educational performance either positively or negatively? I don't think we have data on that, but what are your thoughts, Young?
Oh, okay. The participation of the savings groups certainly helps the children to be better performed at the school. I saw the children who say that because they have now extra money, they can buy their pencils and then more color pencils and then pens. And this makes them, also some children buy their uniforms with their savings, and this somehow gives them more pride. Before, previously, they had to buy the uniforms. I mean, they didn't have a uniform, and sometimes they didn't have they had to beg or they had to borrow the pens from their friends. But now they can buy this by themselves, and then they can study much better. And then I also noticed that those children who are in the savings group somehow develops much better skills in terms of calculating and they are much more disciplined in all this, and they feel very they feel empowered, and then they sometimes do better than the adults in calculating the percentage, and I say that these all somehow affect very positively to their school performance.
That's great, yeah, and we saw these groups in action when we were in the Dominican Republic in May, and these young women who are leading these groups are really dynamic, and they're future leaders of the Dominican Republic for sure. I want to move through the last couple of slides and answer another couple of questions that were asked. Jeff, very briefly, we have a lady with her, these are her mobile ATM, right?
Yes, right. Well, in West Africa or in Africa, a lot of savings is, quote, on the hoof. So this woman with her payout was able to purchase these goats, and the goats can be sold in a pinch when the cash is scarce, or eaten. So it's yes, those call them walking ATM machines.
And then let's see, these are kind of interesting boo-boos or shirts, or?
Yes. Well, I would just like to conclude that this is change. Savings groups are change you can believe in. And let's say if Obama's rating is not stellar here in the United States, in Mali, the Obama approval rating is about 99.9%.
That's great. So I want to take a minute here. One of the questions that was asked was, how can we support the savings group movement? And I wanted to just very briefly give you some ideas on that. First of all, I would say that purchasing in their own hands, How Savings Groups Are Revolutionizing Development by Jeff Ash and Kyle Jaeger-Nealon is a great way, because this book really kind of explains the movement, explains the methodology, and it actually has a treasure trove of resources and a bibliography in the back. Another couple of concrete ways that you can get involved in supporting savings groups. One is a really excellent blog and resource website called savings-revolution.org. This is run by Paul Rippey and Kim Wilson. It's loaded with articles for practitioners. Of the resource database includes the methodology, videos, a really large amount of resources to help you if you want to learn about savings groups, or if you're involved in the field, even at a very deep level, and you want an opportunity to even, blog yourself, there's always an invitation to add to savingsrevolution.org blog. Another really important way is the CEAP network. CEAP has really been doing a tremendous job for years in supporting enterprise development, microfinance, but the savings-led working group, which is one of the important working groups of CEAP, is really kind of picking up the ball. They're putting together a savings group resource center. This is going to be announced. I'm probably a little premature in announcing this, but at the Savings-Led Working Group site, there are a lot of resources available. There are studies, there are links to other organizations, and CEAP will also be organizing the Savings Group 2015 conference. Will be later on in 2015. The location and date will be announced. But so these are really concrete ways that you can get involved in learning about savings groups and helping to spread what you know. We know that a lot of work is going on in savings groups that isn't being broadcast, that we don't know about. I actually got a comment here from Govinda Raut, who says in Nepal Pact, who started the savings group practice back in the late 90s, had that methodology kind of replaced with Grameen methodology, but in his bank, they've been piloting a self-help group model in remote areas. It's very popular, and they link it with credit, and it could be scaled up in other areas, linking with cash transfers and building capital for themselves. So this is just kind of an example of incredible amount of information that we don't know about that we really need to know about. So posting on savingsrevolution.org, getting involved with the CEAP Savings-Led Working Group. The Microcredit Summit has really been doing a great job of getting the word out about savings group lately. So in all these ways, I think there's an opportunity for us to learn about this great new movement that is complementary to what microfinance has done, but also in its own right is a incredible development tool. We didn't have a chance to answer all the questions. but I really want to thank Jeff and Yang for being here today, and the Microcredit Summit for inviting me to be the guest moderator for this webinar. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Gailey now.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, John, Jeff, and Bill. We will be posting the session recording on our blog, the 100millionids.org blog, and we encourage you to keep the conversation going by writing comments. We also encourage you to become part of the campaign by working with us to launch your own commitments to specific, measurable, and time-bound actions that help move towards the end of extreme poverty. So thank you to all our panelists for joining us today and helping us a lot of light on the potential of savings groups. And thank you and have a great day.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.